Just ask me.
So good morning. Let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. This is our second interview, part two, with Eroc Ehrig. We are very grateful that he accepted our invitation to the show. Eroc, welcome to the show again, man.
Yeah, hi. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Eroc, so I want to concentrate this time around about at the point in your life you decided to work as an engineer and a producer, and then I think the first studio was the Woodhouse Studio, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The Woodhouse Studio was a facility I found together with a partner in Dortmund.
Yeah.
After I had left Grobschnitt.
Yeah.
As I told you before, I had achieved a lot of studio equipment in the later Grobschnitt years, so we could do our productions our own in our own studio at the farm. So when I left the band, I had to take the studio equipment with me, of course. And in this process of leaving Grobschnitt, we also toured in 1982, 1983, and the studio equipment was waiting for weeks in the shed of our farm up in the hills. So I looked for someone who could host the equipment, because studio equipment is rather expensive, and it's not so good to let it stay somewhere in a humid room for weeks. So I found this guy Ziggy Bem, who had a small studio in Hagen at his home, and I told him, okay, you can have my equipment if you are cleaning it and using it, so you can work with it when I'm on tour with the band. So that's what he did. He was he's a great engineer. He developed together with me in the Woodhouse Studio later into big engineering. But at that time he had a small studio, as I said, and he hosted my professional machines, and he loved to work with gear like that. So he became a friend. And when I left Grobschnitt in summer of '83, we decided both to concentrate on building up a studio for us. That's what we did. And so we both developed into this studio engineering professional scene from 1983 on.
Yeah. And then you stayed with him for many years, and the guys broke up the business relationship, and then you end up forming your own the mastering ranch in '99. Is that correct?
Yes, the Woodhouse Studio existed for us too from 1983 until 1999. I called him boss and he called me boss, so we were both in the studio, but we had our fields where we worked. Siggy was concentrating on hard rock metal and this stuff, as I told you before, and I was a little bit more into experimental stuff and prog rock and these things. And I did my productions, he did his productions. Sometimes we did productions together. And in Dortmund, the studio existed for, I think it was 7 years. And then we moved the facility to Hagen, which is our hometown. And Ziggy had found a big building in the backyard with 2 floors. So we could set up 2 separate studios where we can work together or like we wanted to. And it was a very great time, and I produced a lot of bands there and learned a lot recording and engineering. And this lasted for me until 1999.
Yeah.
Then I draw back from the Woodhouse Studio and started my own facility with the upcoming digital equipments, doing mixing, mastering, and so on. But it wasn't a hard cut for the technique. I went on with the analog gear. I had a big analog mixer in my own studio then, but it developed into the digital things like we have them today with computers only. And Ziggy ran the Woodhouse Studio a few years more in Hagen until I think it was 2004. And then he gave it up and moved with his studio into his own house down in the basement and set up a new Woodhouse Studio for him, which is smaller, but very professional like we did it before. And he's working for bands and producing bands there in his house up to this day.
Yeah, was very good. Do you remember one of the, if you do, the earliest recording that you did, and how you learn how to do it? Did you learn your own, or you took some classes, or?
No. I'm I'm always a self-taught musician and engineer.
Yeah.
It's I think you get the best experience if you look into the things and try to find out how they work for yourself. Yeah. Of course, you can ask people who do it better. And I learned quite a lot when I worked together with Conny Plank all those years with Grobschnitt. Mm-hmm. I was the second man on the mixer and recording stuff, and we mixed many albums together, Conny and me, and so we could share our experience each other. Conny was a good friend back then. I remember so many anecdotes with him. Just one thing which is very interesting. Yeah. There's a very interesting German guitarist called Hans Reicher from the experimental free jazz scene. He's dead now since 2014, a good friend of mine. We started out in 1971 when I recorded his first album, and we did one production together, a dual production called Kino. That's Japanese and means yesterday. And this production was started in 1983 when I left Grobschnitt. And then we worked in the Woodhouse Studio, Hans and me, we two, worked for 4 consecutive years for this album. It's a huge production time, and we worked out each single note, each single noise, each single tone for this concept. And in 1987, it was done. And I'm now about to re-release it again, remastered with bonus stuff and interviews from me and Hans. And the circle to Conny Plank. I worked with Hans since 71, I told you. And in 75, I worked as an engineer in a studio in Gelsenkirchen, which is in the Ruhr Valley, for 3 years, besides Grobschnitt as a professional engineer. And in this studio, I recorded a totally weird track together with my friend Hans, using playback and all these effects I could find in the studio, and called Heimkehr der Holzböcke, return of the, what are these little insects called? Doesn't matter. It was a strange track, and I played it to Conny Plank. And he said, wow, what did you do there? That's terrific. You can have my studio for 1 week and work in there just for free. And so you can live yourself, you can eat yourself out on 16 tracks now and do what you like. Wow. That was Conny Plank. Yeah. He gave me the studio for nothing and said, if you need me, just call me. I'm over in the house in the bathtub. Yeah. That was wow. Conny Plank. He was so generous, and he was one of a kind, as you know. So I have not only learned engineering together with him. As I told you, Conny and me started out in 71 in Hamburg in the studio, producing the first Grobschnitt album. I learned from him to be generous. And so I still have my musician's heart up to this day, offering some bands and youngsters free mastering or free mixing, because I like their music. And that's how the scene has to go on. You can't pay for everything when you are a young musician. You must find people who are generous. For example, Miguel, I'm mixing for him. I'm doing it just for the fun, because I like his music, and I do the mixes when I find time, and he hasn't to pay anything for it. That's how the real scene has to work.
Yeah. That's great that you're able to do that you are afforded to do that. And then Mr. Plank, Conny, he was very well known. Of course, he passed away. I never had the opportunity to interview him, but a lot of people learned from him. I mean, he was a very good person as well, Well,
I know the stories behind. I know where he had learned his engineering. Great. It was in a very small studio in a town the Americans called K-Town. There was a small studio producing commercial music, and Conny was the assistant there. And when he left the studio, he then tried to get professional, as I told you last time with Metronome Brain label.
Yeah.
He was lucky to be the first engineer for Metronome Brain and get all the jobs from them. And so he developed into his direction. And Connie was very famous because he did a few things like Autobahn with Kraftwerk and these sounds, which were famous in America and Britain and so. Yeah, but in Germany we had a lot of more great engineers like Dieter Dirks, like Thomas Kuckuck, like Walter Quintus, like Mack, of course, which are all German engineers and were very, very good, are very, very good. So Connie is not the only one, but he's maybe the most famous one to this public who knows these special hits like Autobahn or what did he do, Ultravox and Gianna Nannini and all those bands. The Eurythmics, I remember working in the studio when the Eurythmics with Annie Lennox were working there, and in the evening we sat in the kitchen and talked to the musicians. These things have made him very prominent.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Kraftwerk is going to be playing here in July, August.
Are they still alive? I think.
Oh yeah, so I'm going to be seeing them 3 times.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, some people come and go like any band, but 2 of the main guys are there still.
Okay, I saw them for the first time. I saw them in 1970 on a big festival in Essen town in the Ruhr Valley. Down was a huge festival with 10,000 people, and they played by the name of Organisation Ralph Hütter. Yeah, this was a band before Kraftwerk, and I remember they played a track called Ruckzuck. You know this?
No.
No, it's with the flute, and Ralph Hütter was playing flute. That was 1970, long before they called themselves Kraftwerk, or long before they appeared at Connie's studio. when we were there and Kraftwerk appeared, well, Kraftwerk are from Düsseldorf, you know?
Yeah.
And Kraftwerk are a little bit more sophisticated musicians. Grobschnitt always were the handyman. Kraftwerk were those artistic, artificial people, and well, there were discrepancies, but they were great, and they made something completely new at that time. And why? Well, it still is remembered.
Yeah, people here in the United States, they really like Kraftwerk. I mean, the Autobahn and many of the albums, but they're very popular.
Yeah. But people in the US, they have such a great market of unbelievable good bands and history from decades, which all the German bands admired back then. And then they see some proud rock, and they see some bands like AMON DUUL or even Kraftwerk. And so they are so different to their market. Yeah. You know, we don't have real country music over here, and we don't have real innovative metal bands like Slipknot or whatever what comes from America. But this typical German tiny, well, not tiny, this a familiar feeling in the music, which Kraftwerk and so expresses. That's maybe very exotic to your market over there.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, completely. I mean, here, since we are, a big country, and population size and many states, there are people, the north is very different from the south, the west from the east. Not different than Germany. I mean, people in Hamburg may listen to different music than people, I don't know, in the south, like Munich, for example, right? So there is people that like jazz, there are people that like rock, there is progressive music, there's country music in the south, like Texas, and it's a wide range of.
It's a wide range, but we have similar things in Germany. As I told you before, after the war, we had no music in Germany. There was nothing. And then came the Allies, the Americans, British, French, and so on, and they built radio stations here. And the Allied forces radio stations like AFN, American forces, or British forces, or whatever, they were located in different parts of Germany. So in the 70s, there was a typical, north-south difference, because in the south, there were the Americans with their AFN medium wave radio stations. In the north, there were the British. So the north of Germany listened mainly to British music like Beatles, Stones, and in the south, down there, they listened to more American stuff, even country music, which was not a big theme in Britain, you know. So Germany developed a little divided, and you could tell by bands, by listening to their style, oh, well, they are from Frankfurt. They are playing a little more soul and funky.
Oh,
and then you could say, well, there are bands, say, coming from Hanover, or even like us from the Ruhr Valley. We are playing a little more progressive music with thinking, like the British. So the influences came from the Forces radio stations and set points in Germany. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Have you ever, by the way, in the 70s and early 80s as well, there were many progressive bands in Italy as well. I don't know if you have the opportunity to be like Banco, PFM. There's a lot of they were way ahead of the time in Italy with all the progressive bands. You know?
I heard of some of them, but I was more into the commercial Italian stuff like Adriano Celentano and Toto Cotugno and how are they all called. But this progressive stuff didn't really make it into Germany.
Really? Yeah, they were very, I mean, PFM, Banco, yeah, some of the names that come to my mind, right? They were very good. Maybe when I go and visit you, I will bring you some vinyl as present.
Right.
And they're very good.
I can play it. I have a good player here, yes. I have a good player. I can play one.
Okay, that's pretty good. So let's talk about the recording. Remember what was the first or one of the earliest recording that you did? I know that at the beginning you did all the mastering for Klaus Schulze as well, right?
Yeah, that I did it a few years ago. Yes, right now.
Yeah. Oh,
for Universal Music, yes.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Recording, as I told you, my first big project was the one with Hans Reichel, the guitar player, which I did immediately when we set up the Woodhouse Studio.
Yeah.
But then when I had finished this recording and it came out, it wasn't so famous, but some people listened to it carefully. There came resonances. First resonance was from a guy called Philipp Bauer, which is an independent artist in Germany. He said, well, I listened to this LP you did, to this album with Hans Reichel. It's so unbelievable. You must be our producer. So in 1985, I started out producing this Philipp Bauer band for Polydor Music back at that time. And I produced him for about 8-9 years, many albums. And this was a very, very interesting cooperation because we had enough money, we had enough time, and we could do what we like to do. If we needed a special drum sound, we could throw a big box of aluminum rubbish out of the window and record it and put it in a sampler and had a nice percussion or whatever. So it was experimental too, very experimental. And I learned quite a lot there. And then there were so many bands coming on saying, hey, we want to record with you. I did productions with especially children's music, and I did productions for other progressive German bands. One band was called Everon, which still is known in the progressive scene over here. And the drummer of them is running a studio himself now since decades, since we worked together for the first time. I can't name all those acts. They were dozens, they were hundreds. And when I then left the Woodhouse Studio and started mastering, this old production with Hans Reichel came again into the game. Somebody of Repertoire Records, the label manager, called Hank, he was an American. He listened to this album and said, this guy is so great. How could he make this music? We must have him for our company. So it all opened for me because of this album again for Repertoire Records. And they came up with things like, at once, I had to remaster the Yardbirds, I had to remaster Tom Jones, I had to remaster a dozen of artists. at once. And so I started developing into working for them, polishing up the music from the 60s, 70s, and so on. And this still goes on up today. And well, if you look on my website, you can see more than 2,000 productions I have only done for them.
Yeah.
And there are so many name bands and so many friendships which occurred in this work. One simple example, one day I took off the telephone and there was Alvin Lee at the other end. It's a guitar player from England.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Alvin, you are doing my albums for repertoire. Great stuff. Well, we do this one and that one and that one. And we worked together for many years. And he liked my work so much that he even let me master his Alvin Lee in Tennessee, his actual album played in Tennessee together with people like the drummer from Elvis Presley or whatever. And this is only one thing. And one day this telephone didn't ring anymore, and Alvin, living in Spain, I heard he was dead. And that's what I have to live with, because all these people for which I worked are dead or are still alive or died before when we worked together. One other example, I remastered since many years the stuff of a British band called the Yardbirds. All albums from them. I have done everything and still working with them. I shared a good male friendship with the guitarist Chris Rea, and suddenly he suffered from a stroke on tour, and then this male was finished. But Jim McCarthy, the drummer of the Yardbirds, he's still alive, and we are working together with Luis Chenamo now to get out some bonus tracks for Renaissance, which I'm remastering now. And I can't tell you the names; there are too many, more than 2,000. Look on my website, and you can see them. If you see Frankie Goes to Hollywood, they had a singer called Holly Johnson, and he mailed me one day and wanted to have some copies of these. And it's so interesting to get together with the musicians. Yeah. I can tell you a very small anecdote from one of my favorite bands, my all-time favorite bands from the early 60s. They are called the Tornadoes, produced by Joe Meek. They had a worldwide instrumental hit called Telstar in 1961-62. It was in all album charts at spot 1. It's an instrumental. And in 1999 or 2001, I got the job from Repertoire to remaster the complete Tornadoes, this band. And I did it and made the best out of the sounds which I myself loved in the early 60s. The Tornadoes were, together with a band called the Shadows and the Spotniks, all instrumental bands, the reason why Lupo, the Grobschnitt guitarist, learned to play melodic guitar, because he admired these bands and their music. Yeah. And I also liked the music, and we met and exchanged the latest records. Oh, I got Jungle Fever from the Tornadoes. I got Globetrotter from the Tornadoes. Well, so we could exchange the music. What I want to say, when I remastered the Tornadoes, the former bass player of them called Heinz, you can find him on the internet, Heinz Bird. He was a bass player with the Tornadoes. He had even a hit called Just Like Eddie, which refers to Eddie Cochran from the rock and roll days. Heinz was an admirer of Eddie, and he was into this old rock and roll school. He heard my remasterings, and then he said to Repertoire, well, this guy must remaster my own records. So I remastered all of Heinz's stuff, all albums he did. And he was at that time already suffering from multiple sclerosis. He was sitting in a wheelchair. And after I had finished remastering, Repertoire sent him the albums for listening. And then he wrote back a few lines. He listened to the remastered albums, and then he told his secretary to drive him in his wheelchair down to the sea. And there he sat for more than an hour, just overlooking the waves. And that was what he let us know. Wow. The rest is on your side.
Yeah, wow.
I could open up his passed for him again. A few months later, he was dead. Yeah. That was the last thing he got for him. He could hear that his music for the future will be he presented like it never was. Or another example, there's a singer called Leo Sayer. You know him?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got the job to remaster all the albums from Leo Sayer. He lives in Australia, I believe.
Yeah.
And when I finished work, I got a letter from Repertoire. Well, Leo Sayer has heard your work. What did he do? He ordered 20 copies of each album from us. He wants now to give each of his albums to every A&R and engineer of his past with a remark, that's how my music had always been sounding.
Wow, what an honor.
These are stories I can write a book about. So like
that you never are you planning? You should write a book, man.
No. I'm too old for that. For me, it's only good that I can do colleagues. Musicians are colleagues, you know.
Yeah.
And they, when I can help to bring their music, which is their heart bleeding, to the public like it has to be. Because of my technical knowledge, I recognize so many mistakes and attempts which are made back then during recording sessions, which should have been corrected very much earlier. There is so many rubbish and crap on the market. There's poor shit on the market. One example, a band called Beggar's Opera. I had to remaster some album for Line Music in Germany. It's another company. They sent me the original CD, which was already released for 10 or 20 years. I got this CD as source for my work. I put the CD into the player. I listened 1 second and said, wow, impossible. The complete CD was recorded phase reverse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, wow.
If you switch a phase reverse recording to mono, it disappears. You can hear nothing. Unbelievable. Phase reverse is a mistake. It's not able to press it on vinyl. Vinyl, it would explode. But CD works with it. And this CD was completely phase reverse. Switching to mono, the music was gone. I called immediately the company and said, what is this? Is this CD effect or is the whole CD? Oh, they are all sounding like this. Okay, I said, great. And then the boss of the company, Line Music, old friend of mine, he said, well, nobody has had any complaints up to this day. Can you imagine what I want to say?
Yeah.
There is such a kind of crap on the market, but the people sometimes even don't notice it.
Yeah.
So, you know where I stand and what I
Yeah, whether they will hire you, man, that's what amazing. You have any memories of whatever, Out of Noise, Propaganda, Renaissance? Many bands. Yeah.
You see, we have two kinds of working there. Some bands are very interesting what happens to their music. And so there are many contacts, but some bands, they don't care about it because that depends also on the contracts. Some bands are allowed to give input what goes on with their products, and some bands have sold their products to companies, and the companies can do what they want with it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I got great contact to the musicians when I'm doing my work here, and sometimes I never hear of the musicians.
Yeah.
And then there are also cases when I never hear of the musicians. Maybe a year later, somebody goes, oh, well, you have done our record. I heard it, and it's so great, blah, 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 and so like this. But these bands like Propaganda and so, I hadn't heard anything from the musicians. I just did the job. The job was good. In some music papers will say, oh, well, it came out and remastered and now it sounds great, blah, blah, blah. But the musicians, well, maybe they haven't heard it any time. Maybe they don't care about it. I don't know.
So people were sending you the original master tapes? How they send that stuff to you?
The best, always the best sources for doing remastering is the first generation of recording.
Yeah.
Like example, there's an old musician in Germany called Achim Reichel. Achim Reichel played for the Rattles back then in Hamburg Star Club together with the Beatles. Very old musician, is a good friend of mine. And I had to do his complete work years ago, and he sent all original master tapes from the studios back then. That's the best source I can get, but that's not always possible to get the master tapes because in many cases they are not existing anymore.
Yeah.
Or they are damaged, or they are stolen.
Really?
Yeah. We have this case, and so, or they are forbidden to give them to me. Take the example Klaus Schulze. I had to remaster all of his albums for vinyl. And Universal Music said, well, we have the master tapes, but it's not allowed to let them out. They are stored in London, in a big archive, and nobody is allowed to give any tape to anybody. But in this archive, they can copy the tapes professional into digital on a very high sampling rate in 24 bits, 192 or more kilohertz sampling rate. So they copied the tapes for me into this format and sent over the digital format, which is nearly 99.9% close to the original tape.
Oh, I see.
And this is the second best source I can get.
Yeah.
And then the sources go down. I remastered an album for a British band called Genesis. You know them? I don't like them so much, but the first album from Genesis to Revelation, or how is it
Revelation,
called?
yeah.
Yes, that had to be re-released a few years ago at Repertoire Records.
Yeah, that's right.
And they wanted to release, back then this album must have been released in stereo and in mono, in two versions. And they wanted to re-release the mono version, you know? But there weren't any tapes anymore. And Peter Gabriel or whatever, he didn't care about old tapes. So they succeeded in getting one mint unplayed vinyl copy of this album in some radio archive. Oh, I don't know where it came from. And they sent it over to me, insured for $100,000. And I got this unplayed LP from 1966 from Genesis and had to take it as source. And so I have a very, very special record player with special mono stylus and stereo stylus and special REAA pre and phases amplifiers and what you all need, and had to take this music from vinyl. And then listen if there are cracklings and things like that, and remove cracklings and check the phase. You don't have phase correlations in mono, but there are other things. And so the source was vinyl. And mint vinyl is a third best source. But then it goes down. For some, I got here a cassette from, how are they called? Duffy Power. Duffy Power is from the 70s. He played with Graham Bond, I think, and Ginger Baker sometime, and Alexis Corner. He played with Alexis Corner. Duffy Power, he's dead already. And Repertoire wants to release a BBC compilation, Duffy Power on the radio. The BBC has many original tapes stored. They are copying it on digital for me. But now I got a cassette from a guy who recorded the BBC show in the 70s on cassette from the radio, on AM radio, and I have to take it from this cassette as source.
Wow. So it's a big degradation.
Yeah,
it's like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
Copy and noisy and old and stored under the blanket, you know. Well, and I have to repair it. Sometimes it's very hard to repair. Take another example. There are sources. I got a tape source from a guy who recorded in the 70s, a musician called Barbara Thompson. You know her?
No, I don't know him. No.
You don't know Barbara Thompson?
Oh, yeah. Wow, yeah. Okay, now I do. Yeah.
It's an autograph from her. Barbara Thompson is the wife of John Heisman. He was a drummer with a band called Colosseum. You know them?
Yeah, that I heard of them. I never seen
I remastered Colosseum 2 years ago. I mastered the whole stuff. I mastered for John Heisman's JCM project. And during the mastering came the news that he was dead.
Man, it's very bad.
Right in the middle of the work, releasing JCM, he was dead suddenly. Yeah. Barbara is still alive. I'm into good contact with her daughter, because I work for her too. And from Barbara, I have remastered a 14 CD box, the complete Barbara Thompson on the BBC. And I got one tape from a guy who had recorded a BBC show on FM radio with a weak reception in stereo while his neighbor was mowing his lawn. So we have I should play it to you, but it's impossible here on this interview. We have a complete 45 minutes show from Barbara Thompson with permanent inside.
Yeah. So how you
crackling.
Yeah.
And nobody could listen to this, but she played so fucking great back then. She's such an outstanding musician and such smooth tones and always is inside. So I sat down and removed all these cracklings. Yeah. You can do it with tools, but if you do it with tools, they will remove 2/3 of the cracklings and leave you 40% of artifacts in the music. Yeah, it's not good. But you can remove tools on the screen. It's similar to working with Photoshop. You paint them and remove them away with your mouse. Yeah. So it took me 6 weeks to remove all the cracklings from the show. And you won't hear any single one anymore. It was a long work. It was dozens and hundreds of hours I did for this project. And nobody can pay this. I didn't get any money for it. I just did it for Barbara, you know.
Wow.
Did you ever see the film about Barbara Thompson called Playing Against Time?
No, I need to, I'm writing myself some note to check it out.
Check this film out. This film is on YouTube, Playing Against Time. It shows Barbara Thompson and John Heisman playing with Colosseum on tour, and Barbara suffering from her very, very long disease, you know.
Yeah.
How is it called? I don't know how it's called in English, but she has to be waked up with an injection to can get on stage. And how is it called? Not Alzheimer. She's a so-called sleeper in this disease. Well, and the film tells how she manages to get on stage in spite of this very, very hard disease. And her husband is her doctor, waking up, caring for her, putting her on stage, and she plays her solos. And after that film, I was standing in tears for 1 hour. And then I said, okay, then I do this production and nobody has to pay me. I just do it for the music, for her. Yeah. And that's what I did. And so, you see, I'm not only an engineer trying to make the sound better, I'm a musician trying to transport the in and output of the musicians to the public, to the world, like it has to be.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
That's a bit complicated to explain, but you can't only sit in front of your screens working like a technician and listening and analyzing. If you have the music in your heart, you do it right.
Correct, right. Are you aware of the BBC transcription services, where the BBC used to sell, I mean, do many recordings for many artists, and they will send the vinyl radios all over the world for them to play into the radios and that.
Yes, that's the same like AFN, and I have tons of transcriptions in my collection. The BBC sent them to affiliate radio stations overseas and here.
That's right, yeah.
And these are very good sources for these projects, yes?
Yeah, yeah. I have several of those albums, and they're very, very good.
Yeah,
they serve the BBC on concert, the Rock Hour, and they in concert are very, very famous. Some are very rare, some are very, very expensive.
Yeah. I got sometimes I get them directly from the BBC or from collectors in Britain, and they are very of worth for my work, yeah. But the BBC also has in their archives tapes from the shows back then. Not all, but many of them, and through many connections you can get hand on those tapes, and they copy them for me there, and so they are great help for this work, yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's unbelievable. So you need to train your daughter, man, to learn their craft. You learn stuff. I mean, what are you gonna do with all you have so much knowledge in your head? You know, I wish I was living there.
One day it will be gone. It will be gone one day. So it will be gone one day.
No. You need to. So why your wife need to build like a library? I mean, this is important stuff.
No, she has no interest. My wife is a philosopher and has written books about philosophy, and she's not into this technician. No, she can't do it.
So what is
She's
going to
living
happen
over in the house in her world, and I'm doing my work here.
What about your music collection, your vinyl, your picture, all the tapes?
Well, I'm trying to digitize my old tapes.
Yeah.
Which takes years, of course,
yeah.
But to put it on hard disk storage services, to give it to have a legacy for the future, because I know how much of worth it is if you have these things. We are looking for remastering for the best sources, as I told you.
Yeah.
If anybody back then would have been careful enough to store the old tapes properly, or to give them in to somebody else who stores them, we would have them today. We wouldn't have to rely on things like this, old amateur cassettes, yeah? But it wasn't done. So I try to make it better, because maybe in 50 or 100 years, somebody might be interested in my work. He can't ask me anymore, but there are digital things. All I'm doing here when I'm working, all those algorithms and parameters and settings which I'm working out, they are all stored. If somebody can wake them up, he can work on in my projects. So I don't throw anything away.
Yeah. And then when let's say somebody like Klaus Schulze or Genesis send you stuff, you remaster, you fix it, and then how you send them today? You send them via mail? How you send them the output?
No. The output is either it's on vinyl or it's on a CD. And I send the results in a professional format directly to, example given, Sony CD manufacturing in Austria, or if it's vinyl, I send it directly to the cutters, maybe Abbey Road Studios in London is one of our cutters, or which I prefer, the SST cutting facility down in Frankfurt. I send the original digital files to them so they can work with it.
Okay. That facility still exists in Frankfurt?
Which, the SST?
Yeah.
You know them?
No, I heard the name. Of course, I go often to London, right? So I have gone to the BBC Abbey Road Studios to see if they allow me to take some pictures and stuff like that inside. And they say, no, you are not allowed, because I'm not,
I don't want to tell anything wrong, but I'm doing my work here and I listen to my work.
Yeah.
And when others after me are doing their work, like cutting or transferring things, I listen to the results. And so I got a clear picture who does what to my work. I can tell you how Abbey Road cuts into the groove. I can tell you how Optimal cuts. I know them all. I did cuttings myself decades ago. And if you mention SST, very interesting. SST is a cutting facility in Frankfurt, which was established in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it was run by a woman called Christa Bruggemann. She was running the cutting facility in her house, in her bungalow, in a side room. You entered the house, the living room, and there was a door, and there was a Neumann cutting machine standing, and she was cutting albums there. And I went so often with Connie Plank together to her to cut, example given, the Grobschnitt albums. Rob Thomas Land, Solar Music, Jumbo, they are all cutted at SST in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
By this woman. And I remember we were at Connie Plank's studio, finished the production, and next day he said, well, no, we drive to Frankfurt, come on. And Connie and me sat in his car, and we drove to Frankfurt and cutted our production into the groove there with SST. Wow. And she was very famous for cutting so many German productions, all of Guru and Birth Control, how are they called? All were cutted by SST, by this woman called Christa. And she was so great. And when the vinyl got down in the 80s, 90s, well, the CD took over. So her cutting studio was a little bit going down. But then I phoned her up years ago and she said, hi, you are still alive. I remember you coming with Connie Plank. And I said, well, you're still alive with your cutting studio. Yeah, she said to me, she had a great problem. Her heart surgery doctor had died. I said, what? Yes, she said, the heart surgery doctor was the only one who had the knowledge and the tools to adjust my cutting machine, the stylus, for cutting records. Yeah. Because he was a fine mechanic with tools and he could adjust it because nobody else could adjust it because the knowledge and technicians for vinyl cutting were gone. The old people died away or were retired. So it was difficult to cut vinyl. Now, and then, well, she's a little bit older than me. Then I heard she thinks of retiring, and there were some younger people interested in doing cutting. So they learned there, and now they have taken over the cutting facility and do the work. She was, as elder stateswoman, in the background for many years, but now SST has moved from this bungalow to a bigger facility in Frankfurt, and those young people are now doing cutting with this machine from Mr. Brüggemann again, and have established in Germany, doing, in my humble opinion, the best cutting in this country.
Yeah. So I would like to visit that facility. They allow me.
I sent what did I send? I sent Stone the Crows, Renaissance, and 3 albums from Colosseum. I sent 3 days ago to SST. They are right now cutting those albums for vinyl reissues at Repertoire Records. I have remastered all of them here, and they are doing the best cut. And in a few weeks or months, the people can buy the records.
Wow, what a story! Have you ever met the ECM founder, Manfred Eichner?
No, I only know Manfred Schütz, the SPV founder, but not this guy.
Yeah, he's the ECM Records. His last name is E-I-C-H-E-R. Manfred Eichner, I think.
I know the label, and I know they are doing a lot of jazz.
He did a lot, yeah. He did a lot.
Very bright, sizzly sound. Yeah, of course I'll know him, but I never met the guy.
Yeah. Have you ever met the people from Popo Boo, the band? And back then
we played on some festivals. They played in the lineup, and of course we met all those people like Manny Neumeier and all those people we know from the old days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. If you want, we can talk about the you know, the remastering of the Grobschnitt stories. I think you did volume 1 to 6, and I heard them in Spotify the other day. They're excellent. How the band? I mean, how you managed to do that? You needed to convince the band to, you know, take the all the stuff and hours of solo music and do volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. It was complicated.
No, it wasn't that complicated, because when I left Grobschnitt, it developed a little bit
distant,
and depending on my old friend Lupo, mainly, who when you know I left in '83, and in '89 the band did their last gig ever, and on that last gig I attended as a drummer for a few tracks, and most of the old musicians who had already left were together on stage for the big final, shaking hands and hugging each other. So that was the last, the final chord from Grobschnitt. Downtown in Hagen, in our city hall, which was allowed for 600 to 700 people, and there were more than 1,100 inside. It was a big, big event, 4 hours of the very last Grobschnitt, and then it divided. I didn't have any contact to them. Then our former singer Wildschwein formed a project with his sons and some other musicians, and Tony Mofmolo made a small project, and Lupo was gone. Lupo was gone for 20 years. Nobody has ever heard of him. Until we met in 2012 to design the 7910 box, the big Grobschnitt box.
Yeah.
There was a call coming in from Universal Music to me and to him. We want to release a box. How can you help? I hadn't Lupo seen for decades, although he lives 10 minutes away from me. He was not so into my Grobschnitt stories. Maybe he didn't like it. Maybe what I later found out, he wanted to make a hard cut with Grobschnitt because his heart was Grobschnitt. He is Mr. Grobschnitt, so he tried to make the hard cut, and I don't want to hear anything anymore from Mr. Grobschnitt. So he was a little bit down. But he came back in 2012, and we sat down here in this room and started to work like before. He showed up with 14 boxes filled up with newspaper clippings and photos and everything. And I also have 7 to 8 boxes of old clippings and photos on my attic. And we put it together, and we were sitting here between hundreds, thousands of photos. And I all tried to polish them up, sorting them out. And so we made this big book for this box. We worked for 4 consecutive years on this project, and he came nearly each day. So we came together. And in this time between those, the final of Grobschnitt and when Lupo came back and we relived Grobschnitt again, I did on my own private these Grobschnitt stories, because I had so many recorded shows in my archives. And I thought, well, Grobschnitt is gone now. These records are here. And when I am gone, somebody will throw them into some container.
No, don't do that. Never
I saw
throw
it
away.
so many times. I saw it when BFBS Cologne, the British Forces radio stations, had to close down. They threw everything, all tapes, all records, all machinery into the container. Nobody was allowed to take out anything. That's what happens if you are gone. Whoa. So I thought, before somebody throws it in the container, honestly said, nobody would be able to maybe play back these old tapes. Yeah. I used some special noise reduction machine I still have here in my collection. And to adjust the tapes, I am the only one who can handle the tapes. So I just said, just do it. Take out all these old tapes, look if they are still playing proper, and then put it as good as possible into the digital domain so they are saved. And then I started this. And when I listened to the music, I said, wow, some things are damn good. They are better than our regular records. So why should I hide all this stuff to the world? There are so many thousand people outside who admired our concerts and who are collected our records, and they would they would have wet fingers to get the hand on these hands and ears on these things. So I said, why? Okay, just throw it out. Why not? And then I started this series together with our company, Metronome Records. And they said, okay, you have the tapes, you have recorded them, so you have the rights, and we can release them. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
And the first were released by Metronome, and yeah. And the next I released myself, and because the old people at Metronome had changed and all that stuff. But I kept on striving through the archives, and the older I get, the more I like this kind of shit we did back then. There was a time when I said Grobschnitt, well, it was a kindergarten in my life. I'm doing better things now. But now in the old days, I'm listening, I say, in some parts we were fantastic. And I'm still working for it. I tell you a secret now, because I hope I will be long enough here to see it working. I'm working since 4 years now on a remix of Solar Music. You know Solar Music Live? It's an album.
There are so many versions. I mean, I look into
the original
Discog, the eBay. There are hundreds of. Some are 10 minutes, some half an hour, some are an hour.
Yeah. Live recordings, yeah. But we have one which is very famous. It's the original LP from 1978, which came out there. This live recording. The red one.
The red one, right?
Right.
There's like a fire in the background, and yeah.
That's the original one, the first one which came out. And that's the one to which all worldwide are referring to. This is the original one. And I'm in the lucky position to have the multi-track tapes from this one, which I recorded back then. And I tried to put them on with modern technology and best AD converters and whatever I have here, and just tried what can I whip out of this old thing. And since 4 years, I'm now working whenever I'm in the mood for it, not every day, but in the evenings or on Sundays when it rains. And the results are fascinating. It's the same track, exactly the same music like on the old album, but the sound can be brought to the people, closer to the people, to embrace them more than the old one. The old one you can listen to and the music is good and it's fascinating, but the new one, with my knowledge, 50 years of music and technician, more than 50 years, I can get out the magic. You know what I mean? Hopefully. And I'm still not very clear myself if I should do it, but probably we do a deal with Universal. Lupo is negotiating with them, and maybe it would be feasible this year or next year that it comes on the market. So everybody who has this old LP since decades in his collection can throw it away. If he listened only one time to this result.
So, but I think if remind me if I'm correct, but at least here in the United States, when with any record label, pay you and release the music, they have rights for only 30 years. After that, it goes back to the musician, and then you can do whatever you want. At least here in the United States like that. So if your record was done, in the 80s, right? We are in the year 2022, 40 years after, you wouldn't have to ask permission to Universal or any record label. You can take that and do whatever you want. Is that correct or not?
No, depends always on the contracts.
Depends on the contract. Right?
When we signed our first contracts, example given with music publishers, They were contracts who had no time limit. So some of our early titles are still under contract in some musician's publisher who is maybe not alive anymore, but his followers have the rights. We have contracts which can't be changed. And since we were young and dumb, we signed it because we got a contract with this famous publisher, so we
signed everything.
We didn't read the small things.
Of course,
I still don't read the small things. I don't care about all that stuff. I make my music, and when I bring out some of my records, I bring them out, and as long as somebody doesn't have complaints on it, it's okay. And if somebody says, well, I got rights, then I throw it away. I take it from the market, and that's it. I'm not interested in. I don't like law. You know, I went to German High Court in this case many years ago. You have heard of it?
No.
The German highest court. I fought against Universal Music. It stands on my website. It was so expensive, but I got my rights finally. But since then, I don't want to touch any lawyer and any court anymore. They can go down the drain.
Yeah. So Lupo need to reach out to Universal to see if they give you permission to, you know, re-release the Solar Music, the Red Album, the famous one.
Right. Well, we have some situation because it's a remix. It's not what they have paid and contracted for back then. They paid and contracted for this special version, which I mixed back then in Connie's studio, Connie Planck's studio in 1978. And the contract is fulfilled. So they have their rights and they can release this record up to this day. But what I'm doing now is putting work into this project. And this work isn't paid by anyone. So it's my work. And so a company can say, oh, we want to have this, and that's our part of contract. That's wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 So they can knock on our door, and we can knock on theirs and say, well, are you interested in re-releasing this in a new form, in a remastered form? So we have to make a new special contract for this special piece of work. It's a different work. So, well, I'm free with it. If they don't take it, maybe we bring it out ourselves. Lupo and me take it in a box before us and go to the next corner of the street and say, we have a new Solar Music.
you will sell it. Yeah, you will sell it. I mean, yeah, why? I don't know. I need to understand the publishing right to see what is correct or not. But it was a long time ago, I suppose we can. Right, a new contract, right? So at the time they had the publishing right to do this, but you did something else. They don't have the right for something else.
Right.
Right. So that's what. Right. You can argue with that. You have the right to.
That was the thing why when I went to court against Universal Music, because they wanted to re-release my music in 1980 on CDs, my own albums. And I had made contracts with Metronome back then about one album for each album, one vinyl album, and they wanted to put it on CD now and said, well, it's just another technology, but it's the same production, so we can release it without asking you. And that's what they wanted to do. And then I found a great lawyer, which Professor, Dr. In Berlin, who had written books about that and said the CD is a completely different form compared to the vinyl record. It has other technology and it offers more sound and other longer playing time and so on. So it must be handled different. You can't put vinyl contracts for CD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. And that was the thing which I fought. And I got my right on the Berlin court for one time. Then I got my right the second time in Berlin. And then Universal said, well, it's so important. We want to go to the German highest court to have a final decision on this. Yeah. Because when I had won this process, the whole music industry worldwide would have been ruined. you know? If a new contract for a CD has to be made and the old vinyl are worthless anymore, all musicians would have had the possibility to go against their company and say, well, I want a new contract for CD. But
right.
when the CD came out, all companies throw out 1,000. They pressed 1.2 million CDs per day in Germany, up in the pressing plant I know, when the CD came out, the CD boom. Nobody cared about the contracts. The industry said, well, we have contracts about vinyl, now we have CD, it's a little bit better. Put it out, put it out, put it out. And I was about to crack this for the musicians, for me. So the German High Court took 2 years, and the final decision wasn't made. After 2 years, they suddenly showed up and said to me, well, sorry, we can't make this decision because there's a new law and we are surprised about this new law, and so we can't make the decision and we have to give it back to Berlin. And the industry had managed to change one passage in one, how was it called? One law that I couldn't win at the High Court. This was done. And this was told from my lawyer to me. They had done this because we otherwise had to win this whole thing. So I had to get back to Berlin. They said, well, you got your right. You can decide if CD or not. And Universal has to listen to you. And the boss from Universal, I don't know, I don't tell his name. If he releases anything on CD without asking you, he has to pay 250,000 or go into jail for 3 weeks. So what should I do? I just wanted my right. 4 weeks later, I read in the newspaper that the boss from Universal was not the boss of Universal anymore. And 6 weeks or 2 months later, Universal suddenly called me and said, hey, Eroc, we're interested in putting out all your stuff on CD. How would you like it? Do you want to remaster it? What kind of cover? Suddenly there was a corporation going on from this company and the boss was gone. And since that day, I made a lot of productions for Universal, like the Novalis box and the Brain box and the Grobschnitt box, of course, and my own stuff. So there was a good work going on suddenly. But I, myself, had to pay all courts and all lawyers. And it took me 10 years to pay this amount of money. But I have managed it finally, and well, still have to work on a little to get my head out of this swamp. But you can read it on my website. And it went to the press back then. TV was here. They interviewed me on that. Well, and since that time, lawyers and courts and contracts, well, I don't care about it.
You don't want to talk to me. Well, hopefully Lupo will have
only music now.
Yeah, hopefully Lupo will have, you know, there can be a conversation where it's a conversation I need to have, and hopefully, you know, they will allow you to release, because people all over the world know that album very well, right?
Yeah.
So if you can do better, you know, if people would like to buy it, you know, they will sell it like that, you know, everywhere. So
no, Lupo is great. Lupo was our guitar player, but Lupo was from the beginning our manager.
Yeah.
Just because he was the only one who had a telephone. So he made the concerts and gigs and everything, and developed into management, and is still doing management. For the Acoustic Party Grobschnitt project, he always did the management and contract things for the Grobschnitt boxes we made. He is the one who has a telephone and talks to the people and knows all about the contracts. And that's so great that he did it all the decades for the band. Without him, it wouldn't have been Grobschnitt. So he will, of course, negotiate with the companies to bring these things out. I don't care about it. I make my music, my technique, that's enough. He can do it, and so hopefully it will work. No problem with this.
How often do you guys get together every so often? Or I know you get together for the exhibition, right? That you did.
Yes, yes. That was the next project. Yeah, when the 7910 box was done, Universal came up and said, "Well, we want to do another box, a solar music box." So Lupo and me were sitting here again, working for the solar music booklet. And then we had a big exhibition in a city called Essen in the Ruhr Museum under the title of Music in the Ruhr Valley. That was in, was it 18 or 16? I don't know. And so he showed up again and said, we must collect every old thing we have in our corners to exhibit them in this big exhibition where all bands from Ruhr Valley are exhibited. That's what we did. We worked for a year and I polished the old machines I have and old shirts and drumsticks, whatever is lying around in the corners, and made a big exhibition there. And when this exhibition, it was very, very well known with TV and interviews and everything, suddenly the museum from downtown Hagen, our home city, showed up and said, well, we want to do an exhibition also music from Hagen with the Hagen bands like Grobschnitt, Extra Breit, and however they called. So there was an exhibition about Hagen bands going on down there. And that was a huge work for Lupo and me. And when this was finished, it was a big success, the boss of the museum showed up here in this room and he said, we had a coffee and he said, I want to do it exclusively for Grobschnitt, maybe in 2020. Okay, the third exhibition. Oh, well, good. 2020 was a virus time, and so it was pushed a little bit into the future. But then Lupo appeared again here, and we sat for weeks designing texts and descriptions for the exhibition, and for every little thing we would show there, a little text. And my part was to colorize the old photos. I have colorized hundreds of black-white photos into perfect colors so they could be showed in big, big size for the people. It was very impressive. Well, we worked for weeks and weeks to get this exhibition out of the way. And it ended last autumn. My next schedule in my head is to make a video documentary about this exhibition. I have filmed so many things, but I haven't got the time at the moment. But since then, I haven't heard anything from Lupo because he now is concentrating on his acoustic Grobschnitt project, which always had to be postponed because of virus things, Corona restrictions. They had to push the gigs into the future and push and it's such an amount of work he's doing in his office. So he hasn't got time for me now, but I'm sure he will appear someday. He knocks it. How are you with solar music? Is it done yet? He will show up, and then the next project will appear. We have many ideas. There's also some unreleased video stuff from Grobschnitt. The people are asking for decades from videos. We have a few. Well, maybe we can polish them up. So the Grobschnitt story hasn't ended.
So who besides Lupo, who in the acoustic version of Grobschnitt, who is still there besides Lupo? Any original or no? Who else is playing with Lupo in the acoustic?
I told you in the last interview already. He is playing together with our original singer, Willi Wildschwein.
Ah, wow, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
It's the original Grobschnitt voice, and it's still there. He sings like he did back then. He is so great singing and playing his acoustic guitar. They are playing both together with one son of Willi Wildschwein, who's a great guitar player.
Gotcha.
So they have 3 guitars, and that's the lineup. Of course, they wanted that I join the band because then the 3 founding members would be on stage.
Yeah.
But honestly said, you know a little of my daily schedule, work, what I have to do here.
You have so much work to do.
And honestly said, for me, I'm a rock drummer, and a loud rock drummer with acoustic guitars, that doesn't fit.
That's right.
Did you ever see a band playing only acoustic and one copy of Ginger Bacon doing no,
Of course not, right, yeah.
Of course not. So they are doing a little percussion.
Yeah.
When, let's say the son of Wildschwein doesn't have to play guitar parts, he does a little percussion, and it works fine. I heard their production, it's coming out on vinyl and CD right now. I had it here on my screens, and they did a marvelous job. It's the same vocal like back then, and they are doing the old songs only on acoustic guitars. The essence of the music is there, and it's great. So right on with Grobschnitt on the acoustic stage.
So what happened with your drum? Where is your drum kit? You still have it or no? No.
Honestly said, when I left Grobschnitt, I put it into the Woodhouse Studios and played there for a few years for productions. When somebody needed a drummer, like Philip Bohr or other bands, I sat behind the kit and did my thing.
Yeah.
And when I left the Woodhouse Studio, I put it up here where we live. We live on a mountain here in the countryside. I put it into my garage. And there it stayed for 20 years, 25 years. And I didn't touch it because I have no room to set it up here. It's too small. Wow. And then the museum thing in Hagen came. And they wanted to rebuild an original Grobschnitt stage with drums, keyboards, mixing, guitars, everything like it was before.
Yeah.
You can see the photos from it. It was great. So I had to pull the drums out of my garage. And they were a little bit rusty and dusty, you know. The garage isn't not so dry and cold in the winter. But the drums were still there. So I talked to a friend who is a drummer himself and has a studio himself. And I said, well, come on, can you polish the drums for me? I haven't got any time. So he took the kit, and he has some drum pupils, he gives drum lessons, and they polished up my old kit, and it looked quite like new and was exhibited in the museum now.
Wow.
And when the museum was finished, I said, well, I don't want to put it into this muddy garage again. Just put it into your studio. Now it's in his studio. And I am thinking maybe of selling it, because when the Grobschnitt Acoustic Party was founded and Lupo asked me if I want to join in, I did a terrible mistake. I bought a new drum set, an electric one from a company called Roland, with pads, you know. And you can have 100,000 different drum sounds if you play on it, on your headphone. It's a bit smaller than a real drum kit. And I said, well, if I have an electric drum, maybe it fits better to the acoustic guitars. So I bought this thing, and honestly said, that's almost 3 years ago, and it's still unpacked, standing in my archive. I didn't find any time to set it up. So that's the situation. Maybe I sell my old drum kit. Now it's polished, and maybe somebody likes it, I don't know. When it's gone, then it's gone. But I think it has to go, because I can't put it up here in my room. I have my studio work. And on the other hand, I'm 70 years old now. The back is aching a little when I sit here. I have aches in my hands from drumming a little sometimes.
Yeah.
So doing right now what I did back then for solar music, example, wouldn't be possible anymore. When I played solar music, and I'm listening to it during remixing every day, it's like a drum solo of 1 hour, what I did there. You know? Listening to the drums, it's a complete solo work. It's not only rhythm. This Ginger Baker technology by the hi-hat. You know what a hi-hat is?
Hi-hat? No.
Hi-hat is this.
Yeah.
On the drums.
Yeah.
Signals which you can play, but which you also can drive with your foot going like this.
That's right. Yeah.
Baker back then invented the technology to give the 8 bars on the hi-hat permanently, chuck, 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 when he played. He had a metronome going chuck, chuck, chuck with his left foot, you know?
Yeah.
And he could play what he wanted. His metronome was always going chuck, chuck, chuck. And that's what I learned then. and my metronome was going in solar music, tuck, 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 and I played everything, and the left foot made tuck, 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 tuck. You can listen to it. We counted it one day, and each night back then, my left foot was doing 11,000 ups and downs only on the hi-hat. 11,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11,000. Then solar music was finished.
Wow.
You know, drumming in that way is a little bit like, well, wrestling or so. And doing this today wouldn't be possible anymore. And that's frustrating. If I would sit down, I would say, well, I play solar music, chuck, 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 chuck. Maybe half the way I would say, well, is it my left foot? Does it belong to me anymore? You know, and back then, solar music was an event. It was great. And when it was done, we all were feeling better than before. And today it would be, well, you know, drumming with 70 years, like I did with 25, is just not possible.
Yeah.
And so I would like to do it. In the museum, I sat down. The fans were gathering around. They wanted to take a photo of me behind the drums. There were my sticks lying, and I said, well, what can I do with the sticks? Just drum. I took the sticks and started drumming for 1 minute or two. You can see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
It worked like before, not so fast, but same technique. But it's the same like back then in the studio I did with Dave Lombardo. You know, he's a drummer from Slayer. It's a metal band.
Yeah.
Dave was in our studio. We recorded for Philip Boa drums and for other bands. He came there, and he's a world champion with 2 bass drums. You know, he's doing 2 bass drums. Yeah, and we had some drinks together, and there was my kid standing in his, and we tried who is faster on 2 bass drums. And Dave sat down and made his boom, and then I sat down and made boom. And I was very much faster than Dave Lombardo.
Wow.
There were 4 or 6 TV teams who wanted to interview him. And they came in, oh, is Dave playing? And they saw me and they said, who's that guy? He's playing. Is he playing like that? I was faster than Dave. But after 1 minute, I was, and Dave Lombardo could do his double bass for 30 minutes without any. So that's the difference. I was a little bit faster, but I only could do it for 1 or 2 minutes.
That's right.
So I said, how could you learn this? And he told me a secret. He rehearsed with whites from divers. You know, divers who go into the water.
Yeah.
They have heavy weights on their legs to can go down to the ground. And he had those heavy weights on his ankles here, down on his feet, and trained with them to get muscles to be this unbelievable double bass drum worker.
Wow.
And that's what I want to say. When I was able to play 11,000 hi-hats in solar music back then, today, maybe I could manage to play 500 and then it's gone. So that's why I'm not thinking of drumming anymore.
Yeah. Well, I would like to get a couple of signed drum kits, so put it in my shelf there.
Yeah.
when I see you in Germany.
Okay, you can have some old drumsticks.
Yeah, I'll take some pictures. Yeah.
I still have some old, yeah. Still have some drum heads somewhere.
Well, hopefully the solar music project will, you know, remastered will be allowed, because I would love to listen. A lot of people over the world will love that, to have that.
I was complaining about telling you about it because I don't want to tell things which are not already done, but I think it will come out because
Hope so, you know.
I want to count. Lupo also want, because it's we were not satisfied always with our results in the studios back then. Connie Plank was a great guy, but he, in the first place, he didn't have the best equipment. And he was not one of the holy engineers. He made also mistakes, like we all did. And today you can correct these mistakes with better technology and better experience.
Yeah.
And you can put out of the music more of that what we try to put into, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's what is important. And therefore, solar music should come out for our fans who are still there, that they can lean back and enjoy. Because I must honestly say, when I'm doing the remixing, I mostly do it like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I grab myself just leaning back and listening instead of working, because it's so fascinating what comes out of these things into my head. So this is what solar music on record is about, to give people this goose-bumping feeling, leaning back. And this depends on many, many single technical things, reverb and phase relations in the mix, and frequency responses, and tiredness of the ears when listening too long to a certain frequency, and all these things. They have to be corrected, and always adjusted to just get down to their normal role as transport medium for the feeling. If you have too much treble in a guitar, it may sound great. Oh, this is a great guitar. But if you listen on a loud level for 10 minutes, your ear gets down and you say, no, it's too loud. And all these things have to be controlled. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing, man. Man, I can talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, but I think nobody will listen to me for
Of course, yeah, oh, they will, man. So when I go to Germany, I will bring you. I have in my head 3 things that I will bring you. I'm not going to tell you. It's going to be a surprise, but you're going to like them. You know, I wanna some stuff that you don't have. Some stuff that you don't have that you will like. Nothing to do with Grobschnitt. I mean, other stuff that I wanna give away. So.
Okay. Somebody told me already the first part of the interview was already to be seen somewhere.
I send you the link.
Huh?
I send you the link. It's on the radio.
On the radio?
Yeah, I send you the link of the interview, and that email I send you the link for the radio are 2 different things.
Yes.
You can take the link like this recording, right? I will send it to you in an hour, and you can do whatever you want in your website. You can post it, or you can go to the link for the radio. They are independent things.
Yeah, later.
But you're so busy.
Huh? No, well, when I listen to my own words, sometimes I'm not so.
No, it's okay, man. Okay. Man, I don't want the stuff from your attic and be thrown into the dumpster. No. It shouldn't happen. You know, it's somebody does need to go to a museum, need to go to somewhere that either Lupo or somebody else can take care of the stuff. You know, it's important not to be destroyed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, but well, it's so much work, and I have to set priorities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one example. There's one famous DJ in German called Winfried Tränkler. He did the world's most important radio show of electronic music back in the 90s on a commercial radio station here.
Yeah.
And he did it for many years. And he also interviewed Grobschnitt in the 70s. He's a good friend of mine now living in Sweden. And in 1991, he was suddenly fired by the station because the station changed their programs completely. There was no space anymore for progressive and electronic, nothing. They wanted to make mainstream and reach younger people with colorful music. So he had to go, but he was in the lucky position who can take all his tapes with him from 22 years of radio work.
Wow.
And he stored hundreds of tapes with interviews from all over the world, from Carlos Santana to Dr. John, from Frank Zappa to Phil Collins, from everyone you know. All those interviews on tapes he took with him on his attic. On the attic of his friend, his girlfriend back then. Yeah. And then his girlfriend was getting very sick, so he didn't know what to do about all these tapes. And he told me, can I throw them away? And I said, why? Just give them to me. And a few weeks later, there were a complete truck with tapes here. And now I have, since years, I have these tapes from his shows, all digitizing, all saving for the world, so that anybody can hear the original voices of all the artists. And also music. He even did recordings from early concerts in 1971 from AMON DUUL II. He went to the concerts and recorded them. I have the original tapes here.
Where are they? Where do you have them? In your shelf?
Yeah, they're standing here. Didn't you see them? Yeah. Tapes from this radio tapes. Here.
Ah, the red box. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are only a few. But yeah, I just pull out one here.
Yeah.
These are electronic tapes, I see. Yeah, what is here? Eric Clapton. Yeah, okay. I know him. As I say, they're all important tapes. And there are many more bigger tapes from this here down here in these things. And these are already saved. I don't need to work on them anymore. And I have many more boxes of old films, 8mm films from the Scorpions. He was with the Scorpions in Japan on tour back then. And oh, I don't know. It's so much stuff besides my regular work. So
and I will need to go to your house for a week to check everything, take pictures.
That's not enough. That's not enough. I haven't the time. One day is enough. Everybody would like to, but well, let's see. I hope to find a solution for all. Presently, I'm trying to give it all away, all my instruments. And
no. Don't give it away.
I don't need it anymore.
I will buy from you. I don't want to give it away.
You want to buy it?
Yeah, don't go. We'll talk offline. We'll talk offline. I don't want to be in the recording, but I will go on. I'm going to. I told you I'm going to Germany in June.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, so I'm going to Munich to talk to a couple of Popo Bull guys.
Yeah.
Then I'm going up to Berlin to talk to Eberhard, to Manuel Goshin, and then, hopefully Klaus Schulze's kids. And then I'm going up north to Frankfurt to see, almost famous people. And then I need to go and visit you. So I need to do it within 10 days, everything.
Oh, that's quite a job.
Yeah. And so many people, man, the drummer from Peacock too, so many people coming by me, the Eberhard was one of the founders of Kraftwerk at the time. And it's so many, I would need to do many trips, many trips. Okay. It's going to be one of many, but.
Yeah, so maybe you would come up to Breckerfeld here. We have a very, very nice, cozy and modern and great hotel here, so you can stay overnight. Yeah. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
And I know the boss of the hotel. It's not a problem. And maybe we find some time to rap about things.
We need to. I will let you know plenty of time in advance.
Yeah.
Is it possible to take the train there? Are you close to which airport? No, you're close to Frankfurt?
No, I'm closer to Düsseldorf.
Düsseldorf, okay, yeah.
But Düsseldorf is still an hour to drive from here.
But how? I'm not going to be driving. How get to Düsseldorf to where you are? It's like a bus or train or?
From Düsseldorf. In Düsseldorf, my daughter is living, so I know Düsseldorf pretty well. Düsseldorf has an airport. Yeah. And Düsseldorf has a main station. And from main station, there is a regional train
Yeah.
going to, I think it's Dortmund
Yeah.
or something like this. And he takes about 25 or 35 minutes to reach a small city here in our area. This small city is called Gavelsberg. I know it exactly because our daughter sometimes comes by train, and we pick her up on this station. I can reach the station about a quarter of an hour. I drive down in the valley and then can pick you up at the station. That's not a problem.
Yeah, thank
so
you very much.
Düsseldorf is possible. Also Dortmund would be possible. They have also a small airport in Dortmund. But Düsseldorf, I think Düsseldorf, it's better with the train. Yeah.
Yeah.
Düsseldorf is better. Dortmund is not so far away like Düsseldorf, but the airport is not in the city, and I don't know how it's. Düsseldorf is easier. You sit in the bus or something like that and drive to the station, or maybe somebody can pick you up there. I don't know.
I will figure it out. But believe me, don't throw away any tapes. All the red tape you show me, keep it. I'm coming.
There's so much which I need or maybe need. Or I don't throw away anything. But see, I have here one example. As I told you, with Hans Reichel, he is one of the world's most strange guitar players ever existed. He invented guitars. He invented guitars you have never seen before, and he built them himself. And this guitar can make sounds you have never heard before. He is able to play flageolet tones on a fret. And when we finished production, he gave one of his guitars to me as a thank you for what I all did for the music. And I have this guitar still. And I said, what shall I do? I can play on it. Well, said you can sell it when someday when you're down, you can sell it. But I haven't sold it. It's still here. He said, but don't sell it for less than 15,000. That's the work I put in it. So who buys for 15,000 a guitar which he has never seen before?
Eric Clapton will buy.
Eric Clapton?
Brian May or Jeff Beck, or any of them.
Well, Eric Clapton isn't a good guitarist. Brian May is a good guitarist, and Jeff Beck is a friend of mine. Yeah, but they have never seen a guitar like this.
Really?
This is so. Yeah, didn't I show you here? Wait a minute. I have. Maybe I can find. Yeah, this is a newspaper. Do you know this newspaper?
Guitar player? No, never heard of it.
It's
who are the world best?
World's best guitar players. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from 1989.
Yeah.
And if you go centerfold, you see Hans Reichel with his strange guitars.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at this guitar. Look at the frets. It's completely built. And on the next side, there's a small record, and he describes how he constructed these guitars.
I got you.
You know? Yeah. And there are more photos like he had, yeah. And he had invented these instruments. And later he invented a complete new instrument called the dexophone. And he played live the dexophone with the Kronos Quintet on jazz festivals. If you Google, it's so important. It's much more interesting and important than boring electronic music from German bands.
From
this is
Berlin.
Really, yeah. You know, setting up a synthesizer and pressing D minor for half an hour is one thing. But taking a block of wood and constructing a completely new guitar with only an electric driller and a screwdriver. Hans was poor. He didn't have any machines for that. Is another thing. Yeah. And if you listen to the sounds coming out of this instrument, it's unbelievable. But he is gone since 2014.
He passed away?
He has passed away.
So young.
Yes, he was the strongest smoker I ever met. Oh. Seeing him without a cigarette was impossible. So he died by a heart stroke, and that's normal. No, he passed away, of course. He's very honored in his home city where he lived down in Wuppertal. It's close to us, and well, they are. Yeah, they made a big thing, and German radio stations made interviews when he passed away with me and other people. He's in this special scene. He's so famous, you can't believe. But whom shall I sell this guitar? I can't play on it, but I don't want to sell it. But what happens to the guitar when I am gone? These are the things. You say don't give it away. Well, I don't. I will sleep on it.
Well, think about it. Don't wait for me. I'm coming. I want no. I'm very serious. I want. This is treasure. I want to bring it to the world. I mean, all these famous interviews. Somebody need to listen. You understand? I mean, if you know, if Picasso and Dali and solar, if think about it. If there were no recording of solar music in the best days, nobody will. Right. People need to appreciate that. So I'm doing the radio. I'm doing the interviews for everybody. I told you many times already. All my radios, Eroc, are always going to be free. I don't charge anything. I own the music. I buy a lot of music. I go to concert. I interview. I would never charge anything, not even a penny, for other people to appreciate the music. Somebody, I'm not going to be around here, and somebody 30 years from now, hey, who was Tangerine Dream? Okay, they're all the interview. I have interviewed 7 people for Tangerine Dream. Who was Grobschnitt? Right there. Who was this and that? Japan and David Sylvian and Richard Papiro. They're all the interviews and all the music are there for everybody. No, not for me. I'm not doing that for me. It's an archive.
That's very important what you are saying, because I know when I released the Grobschnitt story in 1994, it was the first one. Yeah, I let the ground, the floor, on which today Grobschnitt can dance.
That's right.
Without the Grobschnitt story, maybe the band would have been forgotten.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely.
And because I brought out these stories and pictures and old shows, which I'm stilling now, I have to work for my next bunch of the next series, delivering a complete concert now, which is great. I kept it in people's heads with these stories, and that led into the revival bands they did and museums and so on. You are right. You have to tell it to the world. But I'm not. I don't have time enough, and I don't have chances enough to tell things to the world. And I don't want to tell it to the world on other, because I don't want to tell rubbish. Always a bit self-critic. And on the other hand, I'm talking too much. People who run listening jobs, engineers, producers, they always talk if they are allowed to. They talk a lot. My old friend from the radio, when he's here, he's talking and talking. Well, he's a talker. That's the same like me. So sometimes I'm talking a little bit of crap, maybe.
No. You're good, man.
I have no sheet here. I'm talking spontaneous. I don't have notes here, nothing. I hate writing down.
Come from memory,
Yeah. So, well, if it works for you, okay.
Yeah, of course,
Pass it on.
Yeah, of course. It was very. I know it's late for you, and I need to go to work. It was very nice talking to you, Eroc, again. I'm quite sure we'll do a part 3 and then a part 4, and then I will visit you, and then we'll record everything for everybody. I would put it for people to listen to the stuff. It's not. I'm not selfish. I'm doing that for.
That's great.
As an archive.
So that's connecting us.
Of course, yeah. We need to connect again and do a deeper interview, and then I need to schedule a week off and go to Germany, because people are there's so many musicians that are there. I mean, they're not just the progressive rock, but in electronic music, and in Berlin there are so many unbelievable musicians. I mean, it's amazing, And I told you before, although I don't speak the language, my blood comes from Germany, from.
That's a problem, that you don't understand German. Otherwise, I could send you a link. I made a documentary for about half an hour about my friend, the DJ from the radio station, about his work in the electronic and the music field with pictures and sounds, but it's all in German. He is talking German, it's written in German.
Yeah.
So I can show it to you, but you won't understand a word. Yeah.
I wouldn't understand.
And
the boxes, the red boxes where you have the tape, have you listened to those interviews? They're in English, right? Yeah.
Which interviews?
The one from your friend that the lady sent it to you, she want to throw it away in the garbage.
It's everything's in English. Of course, it's in English.
Right. Yeah.
When
man, those must be great interviews, man.
Yeah, they are mainly statements and interviews from people, Eric Burdon from the Animals and everyone you can imagine. I have all the tapes here, and most of them I have digitized, so I can push the button and you can listen to them.
Wow. I want to listen to all of them, man.
Yeah, you can have them. You can publish them if you want to.
That would be great, yeah. You know, but I need to give you the permission. That belongs to you. That don't belong to me. That I want to do it for as an archive for people. You know, no, not for me. Yeah. I'm not selfish.
The other things. There was one guy the other day from some museum, and he wanted to have the old tapes because they are standing around here, and I have not so much. Well, but he didn't want to pay. He didn't want to pay for them. They wanted to have. Yeah, when he has the tapes, he can play them back, and he has all the interviews. So my friend asked me, how much work did you put into this work up to this day? Yeah, I said, well, 5-6 years. And I know what it costs to get a copy from a tape from the BBC or others. So I'm copying all these tapes. I haven't seen a penny, and I don't want to see a penny, you know what I mean? Yeah. But then we told this guy, well, 50,000 euros. Oh, he was gone. That's the problem. It's idealism. It's just for the thing, but others could make a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the problem always with the musicians. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Eroc, thank you very much again for your time. I will when I finish the recording, I will send you a link, and I already send you a link for the first one. So check your email.
Yeah, maybe I find time to
when you have the time, you send it to your friends, whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Maybe I could post it somewhere on the Facebook or other things. But I have many friends in Germany who are not able to understand my English, which I learned as prisoner of war in World War II. Yeah. Hello, my dear friends. It's quite not so good. So
no, it's very good. My English is not so good either. Yeah. So we'll manage, man.
We'll manage that, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Eroc. Have a great afternoon, man.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. And part 3 maybe next week or so.
You bet. You bet. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good time.
You too. Thank you.